Ladies and gentlemen, and various bipedal species, as always, I am Cosmic, and today the time has finally come to continue our quest against the Dredge with the release of the second installment of the Banner Saga. Developed by Stoic and published by Versus Evil, the Banner Saga sets off just after the first game finishes, and depending on your various choices in the first game, one character will continue to lead the caravan of the Val and humans to safety. Now, I'm not going to give any story spoilers, but I will say this about the story. Stoic have kept up the quality of the first game and improved some. The game is well written, the dialogue is good, and ultimately the story is compelling as ever. Those who have played the first game will recognise the timeless aesthetic that the Banner Saga has gone for. The hand-drawn visuals are just sublime, and the improved backdrops, particularly in the battle environments, they just seem to have a little bit more detail than the previous version. Everything looks wonderful, and it's one of those games that's just going to last the test of time. On the sound side of things, the great score by Wintory once again returns, and the music is just a force to be reckoned with, as it was with the first. Now, if you haven't played the original Banner Saga, I would always recommend playing the original and then getting into the second, for the simple fact that in story-wise you will know what's going on, and you can import your save from the first, so all the choices that you made personally in the first game will be reflected in the second, particularly on who lived or who died. Once you'll refamiliarize yourself with how the game is played, you'll realize that it is very, very similar to the original game, and not much has changed. The caravan mechanics pretty much remain the same. However, there are subtle tweaks to the original's formula that are basically just refined the game, particularly in combat. Combat is more difficult with the additional enemies that have been added. They've added destructible environments, and most importantly for me, different victory conditions. Instead of having just to kill all enemies like you did in the first, you have basically altered parameters. So sometimes you can just kill a single target and that will win, or sometimes you just have to hold off the enemy for a specific set of time, that kind of thing, and that makes the actual battles much more fun and much more entertaining, because it's not just a simple case of kill all the dredge to win. As you progress in the game features new characters that will join your caravan, including a new race, the Horseborn, which are a fantastic race and have some great characters in there. For me personally, the game looks really good, it plays really well, and a lot of the small tweaks that have been made that the developers have listened to from the previous game's feedback have worked a treat. However, there is one core mechanic in the combat that still plagues me and still irritates me, and that is the damage being directly tied into your hit points. That system drives me crazy. It is annoying, and I don't think it makes the combat less fun, especially on the harder difficulty. This mechanic remaining in there will still mean that you have a 14 hit point Val who you have leveled up and is an absolute badass, and after a couple of long range shots from the Dread, he's knocked down to 4 hit points and will basically be able to do no more damage than 4 hit points, and it drives me insane. It basically can mean that your best characters are taken out of the game, and it leaves you in a precarious position for the rest of the battle, especially in the tougher battles, which it's never been a fun mechanic in my eyes, and I really hope that they would take it out for the second, and they haven't. But that is my biggest complaint for the combat. Other than that, the combat is fantastic, and I really like the small changes that they've made, because it just adds a lot more depth to what was there before, and I think that Actual team makeup now is a lot more important, because it isn't just a simple case of, warriors at the front, ranged units at the back anymore, simply because of the additional enemies, like the stealth enemies that will basically just go around your front line cloaked, you can't see them, and then they will pop up right next to your archers. It means that you have to really think carefully about your team's makeup, as well as the tactics you employ on the battleground. Character progression remains pretty much the same as the first, with being the ability to basically use renown to level up your characters, and characters can all have an item equipped. Your items and your level progress will actually carry over from the first, which is why it is very important to play the first and then import your saved game. Ultimately, there isn't that much to be said about the Banner Saga 2 that hasn't already been said about the Banner Saga 1. In terms of comparisons, it's basically the same, except what they've done. Stoic have went away, taken some criticism, improved the formula with some tweaks, brought it back, but ultimately at the foundation and its core, it's still the same game, which is no bad thing, because the Banner Saga was a great game and the sequel is now a great game. I really like the story, I really like the progression, I like the combat, bar a few things that I didn't like, and like I say, there has been a lot of improvements compared to the first, so ultimately it's still better than it was. In the end, it's the Banner Saga 2, it's the second installment, the saga continues, the story and the plot unfolds more, and it's a really fun game to play if you like the first, because it's very similar. If you don't like the Banner Saga 1, you're probably not going to like the second. I don't see why you wouldn't like the first, because it's a great game, but if you don't, then you don't. Ultimately, I think that it is a really well made game. I'm glad that the developers have made the changes that they made. I'm glad that they didn't bring it out last year and polished it some more, because the game runs really, really well. The changes are well worth it, and the story is really great. So if you're a fan of the first, definitely go pick up the second. I myself will be starting a completely new game on the first one and then going through the second one again, which will be a hell of a lot of fun. So that is my review for the Banner Saga 2. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Do like, subscribe and leave a comment. Let me know what you think about the game, and I will see you next time.